So really, it's a very quick update, and it's quite a breathless session, so forgive me if I stay with the pattern, but it's 10th birthday of EMEC in May this year, but it was also my 54th birthday yesterday, and so that's caused me to reflect on a few bits and pieces on the basis that statistically I've probably got about 20 years left, which is 7,000 days, so I'm going to crack on. So the point is that as a quick update, I thought it was good to characterise what's actually been going on at EMEC, which is actually the questions that we tend to get posed with, which is what the hell have you been doing with your time and haven't you finished yet? Well, the answer is we've been doing an awful lot, and no, we haven't finished yet, and in fact we've barely started on what needs to happen to make this industry work. I'm assuming you already know about EMEC, we've mentioned a few times. If you don't, we're on the stand. But broadly speaking, we were set up in 2003, largely as a result of work that John Griffiths and others put together, which resulted in us building the wave test site. The tidal test site was commenced in 2005, and that's about the time I joined. And more recently, we've built some scale test sites for smaller sized devices, as Mark mentioned earlier. Why are we doing it in Orkney? Well, it's certainly an energy-rich set of sea conditions. There is a harbour there. You can see there the fleet during the First World War in the 50 square miles of ocean, which is inside Scapa Flow. And there's a lot of energy expertise. We're self-sufficient in electricity, largely from wind at the moment, and port infrastructure is being built as we stand. So there's an awful lot going on, and Orkney is definitely a sensible place to do it. Not the only place, but it's certainly a sensible place to start. And what are we doing? We're working on a variety of different wave devices, thanks to Aquaret for these animations, but we are working with developers who are working on the ones in the top line. We're not working with developers on the bottom line at the moment, but that can change over time. But the point is, these are not just graphics. These are actually real machines that are working. And so far, we've had an assortment of machines there, coming and going at a variety of rates. Aquamarine Oyster have had now on their second generation machine with the Oyster 800. That's in and operating at the moment. Eon have had their Polaris in, and Scottish Power have as well. Those machines have been coming and going. In fact, the Scottish Power Polaris went past my office window last week on its way back in for some maintenance. We've had Wello operating from Finland. Their machine has just had a refit in Riga and has just arrived back in Orkney, due to go back out during the summer. And Seatricity are in the process of deploying a number of their floats. They've got a lot of their infrastructure in, and they're just working towards their commissioning. So my point is that there's an awful lot of real stuff that's actually happening, and in the near future we're expecting Vattenfall to come along with another Polaris. So real things happening in real sea conditions. In terms of the tidal side of things, once again, we're working and have worked with developers largely on the top line here, horizontal axis turbines, vertical axis and Archimedean screw turbines. Most of the turbines are centred on the ones at the top left-hand corner, horizontal axis, and once again we've had a range of machines from Open Hydro through to Open Hydro are now on their, I think they've had 6 different iterations of their turbine onto this test rig, and a dummy foundation they've tested. Tidal Generation Limited are now on their second iteration. They had a 500 kilowatt, that's the 1 megawatt machine that's on the quayside waiting to go back in for some further tests. Atlantis, so we've seen, have been in the sea. They've taken the top works away from an NAREC for further testing. We're expecting them back in due course. Scott Renewables we've heard about with Mark's excellent presentation of what's been going on. We're delighted with helping with the performance assessment they've just been undertaking in the last few weeks. And Hammerfest have had their machine in. It's out again at the moment, and it's due to be going back in the not too distant future, in the next sort of month or so, we understand. And Voith have got their pile into the sea, and the top works is coming along. There were recently photographs of the nacelle in Cherbourg on its way up to us, and we're expecting that. We're preparing the site for their arrival. And in the not too distant future, Kawasaki are coming along with their tidal turbine, and the Blue Tech machine we've heard about as well today. So once again, a lot of stuff, not much of it graphics, a lot of it real equipment. And from this variety, there's a lot of lessons that we have actually been learning. And the point is, we're learning these lessons in real sea conditions. And here's two pictures of aquamarine oyster. Oyster 1 on the top is dangling off that crane, which was a process they used to get the oyster 1 out. The second machine at the bottom is the oyster 800, which they made buoyant and then floated out. And it's that sort of learning which we're helping to enable developers to undertake. It allows them to polish their ideas and come up with better ways of installing. But the point is that what we're seeing is developers are having to work their way through a stack of issues. And you have to work your way through this list from the top down towards the bottom. It's got to be installable, it's got to survive, it's got to be reliable, etc., etc. It's only when you've got all of those, you know you've actually got a commercial solution available. And the point is you can't shortcut that. You have to start at the top and work your way back, work your way towards the bottom. And we are desperately trying to help in every way we can to allow developers to learn those lessons effectively and safely. So in terms of the achievement, what's gone on in EMEC in the last 10 years overall, there are more grid-connected devices at EMEC than any other single site in the world, and these numbers chop and change on a regular basis, and frequently we've got as much in as anybody else has put together. But the point is it's been a build-up that's taken time from 2003-04 when we really started this journey. Each of these lines horizontally is another developer. And we're now in a position where we have all 14 berths contracted, 11 devices actually being worked on out at sea at the moment. And in addition to that, on our scale sites, we're now in the process of testing our third client on the scale sites, where there are less onerous tidal conditions, but still all the drama of seawater, weather, and all the rest of it. So really, in the 10 years, I thought I'd very quickly in the last couple of minutes, just really review some of the objectives that we set ourselves about why we are bothering with this. Because sometimes you do ask yourself, is it actually worth it? Are we struggling with the right things? And I have to say I think we are, because marine energy, from certainly a series of reports, including the leading report from the Carbon Trust, was saying that a fifth of the UK's electricity, and that excludes the Severn barrage if we eventually get around to get on with it, a fifth of the UK's electricity could actually come from marine energy, so wave and tidal. We know that there is an opportunity to build a local and national industry around what's going on, and indeed the opportunity to make international links, both by people bringing technology to the UK, but also developing technologies for export. Critically important to the UK economy that we get back into the habit of making things. And this also allows us, because of the resources being around the UK, that we actually have an opportunity to make that transition into the post-carbon era. We've done carbon, yeah, we had a good go at that. We were the first ones into the Industrial Revolution, and actually now's the time to be the first ones to lead the way into the renewables revolution. We need to get to a point where we're not so reliant upon carbon, and we need to, can be one of those tools that can help us get there. And if we do that, then that does give us this opportunity with security of supply and also sustainable jobs in communities that really need employment. So all in all, very, very useful items on the front side, but also we need to realise that there's a very important task on the back, and that is we need to understand what our decommissioning costs really are. I have to say, I'm pleased to say that they are not going to be very high, and certainly not as high as some industries are having to face. But if I do a quick personal score of what I think has happened with these, I would characterise them as follows. The green ones being, yeah, we're getting there. The orange ones, yeah, probably we are getting there. And the other ones, the sort of the grey ones, are ones where we haven't really proven the point yet. And I think there is a long, long way still to go. And this is really where this talk and my recent birthdays caused me to reflect on what's been going on. And I thought it would be useful to just reflect on what has happened based on when I was born in 1959, when EMEC was born in 2003, and where we are about now based on local figures. Because against these background changes, I think we need to recognise that we are on an important mission to try and deal with our present carbon addiction and a way to sort ourselves out. And the background changes I would really offer is that the population on the planet has doubled since I was born, which is something of a worry. In addition to which, the oil use per person on the planet has trebled in that time. And added to that, the actual carbon dioxide emissions has over trebled in my lifetime. And if we look at what's happened with oil prices doubled between when I was born and when EMEC was born, and has then quadrupled since EMEC was born to 2011. So if anybody has any idea that we are heading in the right direction, generally speaking, that's my time out, so there we go. I would strongly recommend that you realise that the imperative for making this work is actually increasing rather than as decreasing. So I would say the present conclusions are that, as I say, the imperative is there, and I'm pleased to say the political will remains extremely strong to build a new and sustainable industry in this important area. We are actually delivering. We're actually getting machines to put megawatts into the grid, and it's starting to happen. It really is starting to happen. But we do know that it's not easy. It's not cheap. It certainly will never be too cheap to meter. But it is actually possible. And we have to make sure that we really do stay on the journey, because we have to realise that the duration of some of these pre-commercial testing activities was underestimated, and it's going to take longer than we had originally thought it was going to. But I have to say that really does then mean that now is the time that we absolutely have to push. The imperative is there, the political will is there. I really don't know when we get a better time to do this. So with that, I think I can safely say I think we've had a pretty good first 10 years. I'd like to thank particularly the staff who work at EMEC and the directors who work with me, because we really couldn't do it without them. And frankly, it's now back to work for the next 10 years. Thank you very much indeed.